This happened just a couple of months ago, during one of those chilly weekends at the tail end of winter. I was holed up inside my small rental home in Ashwood, a quiet little town in Oregon, just waiting for the cold season to finally give way to spring. The rain hadn't stopped all day. It was cold, damp, and just gloomy enough to make me want to do nothing but wrap myself in a blanket and binge-watch some old horror movies. I had no plans, no obligations, just a relaxing night in. Around 7 p.m., not long after I'd finished eating dinner, I heard a knock at the front door. It wasn't aggressive or loud, just a couple of taps, but it immediately pulled me out of my comfort zone. I paused the movie and got up. Peeking through the peephole, I saw a man I didn't recognize. He was wearing a faded brown coat and a beanie. Oddly, he was holding a snow shovel, though there wasn't a single flake of snow anywhere in sight. Confused, I cracked the door open just an inch and asked what he needed. His response was disjointed and strange. He mumbled about offering yard work, said he was just trying to earn a little cash, maybe help shovel some snow. There was no snow, no ice, and no reason for anyone to be offering that kind of help. The way he spoke made my skin crawl, like he had rehearsed the lines but forgot half of them midway through. I politely told him I wasn't interested and began to shut the door. But before it closed, he pressed his hand against it, stopping me for a brief, tense second. He didn't say anything, just stared at me through the crack in the door with eyes that were cold and calculating. Then, just as suddenly, he pulled his hand away and turned around, walking off into the fog and rain. My heart was pounding. I locked the door, made sure the deadbolt was secure, and went to the living room window to watch him. Through the misty rain, I saw him disappear down the street. I stood there a minute longer, just to be sure he wasn't coming back. Eventually, I sat back down, convinced it was just some strange encounter. Probably a drifter or someone desperate for money. Creepy but harmless. The rain only got worse as the night went on. Around 8:30, I started another movie, though I could feel myself getting drowsy. The couch was warm, and the storm outside gave everything a calming white noise. That calm didn't last long. Out of nowhere, there was a loud thump that came from somewhere above me, just one, but strong enough to jolt me fully awake. I muted the TV and listened. The rain was pounding the roof, making it hard to tell how loud the thump really was. But I knew one thing for certain: it came from upstairs. I grabbed a flashlight and made my way up, checking each room. I thought maybe something had fallen, or the wind knocked something loose. But after a thorough search, I found absolutely nothing out of place. Maybe it was the gutters shifting from the weight of the rain, I thought, or just the old house settling. Either way, I didn't want to overthink it. I went back downstairs, now fully awake again, and watched the rest of the movie. By the time it ended, it was just past midnight. I turned off the TV and walked around the house switching off lights. As I climbed the stairs to head to bed, I noticed something strange. The temperature noticeably dropped as I reached the top. It was subtle, but enough to make me pause for a second. I chalked it up to the storm outside and continued on. I started closing all the doors upstairs, something I always did before sleeping. But when I stepped into the guest room to shut its door, I froze. The window was open, just barely, but enough for cold air to be drifting in. I stared at it, my brain refusing to accept what I was seeing. I knew I hadn't opened that window. I hadn't opened any windows all week because of the weather. It just didn't make sense. I walked over and examined it closer. It was the type with a small roof ledge beneath it. As I looked at the sill, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. What looked like a faint, wet shoe imprint. I stepped back and listened. The house creaked softly, rain tapping on the roof, but now there was an eerie silence beneath it all. A presence. A weight. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. Every open doorway in the hallway felt like it had eyes. Like someone was watching me, waiting. I turned and walked quietly, deliberately, out of the room and back down the stairs, trying not to make a single sound. I grabbed my phone from the kitchen counter and made my way into the garage, locking the door behind me. I called 911 and whispered what happened. The dispatcher told me to stay put, and an officer was only a few minutes away. I waited, every minute feeling like an hour. The rain was relentless, masking every possible sound. I couldn't tell if someone was moving upstairs or not. My imagination ran wild, and all I could do was hope I hadn't been seen. The officer finally arrived. I let him in quickly and stepped back outside, standing on the porch while he went in to search the house. 2 minutes later, I heard him shout from upstairs. Then I saw him coming down the stairs, pushing someone in handcuffs. It was the same man from earlier. Same jacket, same beanie. Only now, his face was twisted in rage, and he didn't say a word as he was led past me and into the police car. The officer explained that the man had likely climbed onto the roof earlier in the evening. That thump I heard was probably him landing up there. From there, he must have slipped through the second-story window, the one I hadn't thought to lock. The most disturbing detail? He had been hiding in the master bedroom. The very room I was about to sleep in. The officer said the man had taken off his shoes after entering to avoid leaving tracks on the carpet. That tiny imprint on the window was my only warning. If I hadn't noticed it, if I had gone to bed like usual, I might never have known he was there until it was too late. The judge later said his intentions were clear, and they weren't just theft. It's been months since that night, but I still can't sleep soundly. Every creak, every knock makes me jump. I lock every window now. Double-check every door. Sometimes, late at night, I stare at the hallway upstairs and wonder, what if he had waited just a few minutes longer? What if I hadn't gone back to check? I was seconds away from walking into that room, climbing into bed, and never realizing someone was already in there watching. About 2 years ago, I took a short-term job at a 24-hour convenience store just off Route 17 in the quiet town of Millers Grove, Colorado. I had plans to move out west in 6 months, so I wasn't looking for anything long-term, just something to help cover rent and keep food on the table. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than expected for a night shift gig. My responsibilities were simple: man the register, tidy up the shelves, and occasionally check the lot for loiterers. Easy enough. By my 4th month, the night routine had become second nature. Most nights were dead silent. Just me, the hum of the freezers, and whatever true crime podcast I had playing in my earbuds. Around that time, I started noticing a regular customer. A man who always showed up around 1 or 2 a.m., like clockwork. He never said much, never stayed long. Just walked in, grabbed a few things, paid, and left. His name, at least the one he gave me, was Rick. He looked like he was in his early 40s, tall with thinning hair, and he drove a beat-up red Oldsmobile. His purchases were always random, sometimes batteries, sometimes snacks, sometimes duct tape or flashlights. I always found it strange how he bought things here that would have been cheaper at any normal grocery store during the day. But hey, night people are a different breed. I never pushed it. Then one night, just past 1 a.m., Rick pulled up like usual. But this time was different. As soon as he stepped inside, I could tell something was off. He was drenched in sweat, breathing hard like he'd been running. His eyes darted around the aisles like he was looking for something specific. My stomach dropped a little. Something about his energy made me sit up straighter. After a minute of frantically scanning the shelves, he grabbed a small package and rushed to the counter. It was a master lock, the kind used to chain up a bike or a gate. I tried to play it cool, scanning the item. "You finally get that bike you were always talking about?" I joked, just to break the tension. He didn't laugh. Didn't even look up. Just fumbled through his wallet, pulled out a crumpled wad of cash, and slapped it down without a word. His hands were shaking. I didn't press him. I bagged the lock, handed it over, and watched as he bolted out the door, hopped in his car, and sped off into the night. My gut twisted. Something about it wasn't right. I told myself maybe he had bought a bike. Maybe he rode it downtown and just forgot to bring a lock. Maybe. But it felt like a stretch, even for me. The rest of the night was quiet. I sat behind the counter, mind racing, trying to ignore the unease creeping into my thoughts. The next few days, Rick didn't show up. Not once. That alone was strange. He came in every night like clockwork, and now he was just gone. A week passed. Nothing. No red Oldsmobile. No Rick. I tried to forget it, assuming he'd found another store or moved on. Then, on a rainy Wednesday night, he came back. I was leaning back in my chair, watching the raindrops hit the window, when that old red car pulled into the lot. He stepped out quickly, wearing a soaked hoodie, and rushed inside without even glancing at me. I greeted him, just out of habit, but he didn't respond. He moved through the aisles in a blur, mumbling to himself. I couldn't make out the words, but he sounded angry. Agitated. I stood up, uneasy. And then I heard it, a thud. Loud and sharp, like something striking metal. It came from outside. My eyes snapped to the front window. There was nothing there, just his car sitting in the pouring rain. But I knew what I'd heard. It was like someone had kicked the inside of a car door. I turned my attention back to Rick. He wasn't shopping anymore. He was standing at the end of the aisle, staring straight at me. Not blinking. Not moving. My entire body went cold. Something was very, very wrong. That wasn't just the look of someone caught stealing. That was the look of someone who had a secret they couldn't afford to let you uncover. Another thud echoed from the car. I didn't look away from him. Couldn't. My instincts screamed at me to stay calm, but inside I was spiraling. Suddenly, he broke eye contact, rushed out the front doors, jumped into the car, and drove off, tires screeching as he turned out onto the highway. My hands were shaking, but I had the presence of mind to pull out my phone and snap a picture of his license plate as he peeled away. Something told me I'd need it. I called the police right away. Explained everything, his visits, the strange purchase, the noises from the car. They told me someone would follow up. That night felt endless. I didn't sleep when I got off at 6 a.m. I just sat in my apartment, waiting for a call. Around 8 a.m., my phone rang. It was the police. They had traced the license plate to a small cabin on the outskirts of town, someplace off-grid, newly rented, with no prior address on file. When they arrived, they found Rick and someone else. A woman, tied up, terrified, but thankfully alive. He hadn't hurt her yet, but he planned to. She had been missing for days, reported by her family in a neighboring county. No one had known where to start looking, until I did. Apparently, Rick had abducted her just a few days before that strange night. He came in sweating and frantic. That master lock. It was meant to secure the storage unit he was keeping her in. The noises I heard from the car. She was kicking, trying to escape, even as he shopped just feet away from me. And that look he gave me? He knew I'd heard it. Rick wasn't his real name. Authorities said he'd been using aliases across 3 states, constantly moving, never long enough to raise suspicion. But thanks to that one photo, they were able to stop him. He's in prison now, likely for life. But I still think about that night, about how close I came to missing something that could have cost a woman her life. These days, I double-check the locks on every door. I look twice at strangers. And when I hear a thud in the night, I don't brush it off. Because sometimes the people who seem like harmless regulars, the ones who just want gum or batteries or a cheap lock, are hiding something darker. And if you're lucky, you might notice before it's too late. I was 14 when this took place, and it happened during spring break. My parents had gone out of town for their anniversary, and were staying overnight at a resort a few hours away. For the first time, I had the house completely to myself. Naturally, I invited my best friend Marcus over for the night. He showed up with a duffel bag full of junk food, chips, soda, candy, and even a couple of energy drinks. We set up camp in the basement and fired up the gaming console. We had the speakers turned up and were deep into our 3rd hour of gaming, totally immersed and unaware of the time. It was the perfect mix of sugar, noise, and competition. At one point, Marcus got up to grab a glass of water from the kitchen upstairs. A few minutes passed, and when he came back down, he looked different. Pale. Nervous. I asked what was wrong, and he said, "Dude, I swear someone was standing out in your backyard, right outside the kitchen." At first, I thought he was messing with me, trying to add some spooky energy to the night, but his voice was too steady, too serious. We both went upstairs to check. The kitchen was quiet, and through the large sliding glass door, the backyard looked empty. But then we noticed something that made my stomach turn. There were smudges on the outside of the glass, long, greasy smears that looked like someone had been pressing their face or hands against it, trying to look inside. My first instinct was to close the blinds, which I did immediately. We then walked the perimeter of the house, checking the other windows. Everything else seemed normal. We tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was just some random neighbor walking by. Or maybe we were being paranoid. We were just 2 teenagers with no clue how to handle something like that. We headed back downstairs and resumed gaming. The intensity wasn't quite the same, but after a while we forgot about it. A couple more hours flew by. The digital clock on the entertainment center read 2:47 a.m. Marcus yawned and tossed his controller onto the couch. "All right, man. I'm beat." The basement had 2 small couches, so we each claimed one, laid out some blankets, and turned off the lights. The hum of the house settled into silence. But sleep didn't come easy. I kept drifting off, only to wake up a few minutes later with my heart racing. I figured it was just the caffeine from the energy drinks. This cycle repeated for what felt like an hour. But the last time I woke up, something was different. It was pitch black, but across the basement, at the top of the stairs, I saw a faint sliver of light leaking through the doorway. I sat up, unsure if I was dreaming. I glanced at Marcus. He was still on the couch, curled under his blanket, sound asleep. I stared at the light. The door was cracked open just enough to let a glow spill through. It hadn't been open earlier. I was sure of it. My stomach dropped. The thought crossed my mind. Did Marcus go upstairs and forget to close the door? But that didn't make sense. I would have heard him. I stood up quietly and made my way to the bottom of the stairs. My feet were cold. My hands were shaking a little. Slowly, I crept up and pushed the door open. The hallway light was on. So was the kitchen light. Something felt very, very off. I tiptoed toward the sliding glass door in the kitchen. I needed to know if someone had come back. From what I could see, the backyard was empty. No shadows. No movement. Just the stillness of early morning. I was about to turn away when I noticed something in the glass. Something in the reflection. A blur of motion. I spun around. At the far end of the hallway, something or someone had just darted across it. My heart nearly stopped. I froze, staring down the hall, trying to hear anything. But it was dead silent again. I turned and bolted back downstairs. My legs felt like they were barely touching the steps. I shook Marcus awake, whispering sharply, "Someone's in the house." I saw them. He sat up instantly, eyes wide, all signs of sleep gone. We grabbed Marcus's phone, climbed into the basement closet, and shut the door. I dialed 911, trying to keep my voice steady. While we waited, we could hear footsteps upstairs. Heavy, rapid ones, like the person was searching for something, or someone. The footsteps stopped suddenly. We held our breath, straining to hear any creak, any movement. A few long minutes passed. Then the front door creaked open, followed by nothing. Silence. The police arrived not long after. When they searched the house, it was empty. But they found something disturbing. The lock bolt on the sliding glass door had been broken, snapped clean off. That's how they got in. Whoever it was had been in the house with us the entire time. They hadn't forced entry. They had waited. We told the officers everything. They took fingerprints and scanned for evidence, but they never identified anyone. No face, no name, no motive. In the months that followed, strange things continued to happen. Every few weeks, we'd find smudges on the glass again. Always the same place. Someone was still watching. Still coming back. Still standing outside that same door in the middle of the night. We eventually installed a security camera overlooking the backyard. After that, the smudges stopped. At least, as far as we could tell. It's been over a year since the last sign. But I still remember that night every time I walk into the kitchen. And I still check that sliding glass door every single night, just to be sure.